Good afternoon, my friends, and happy Patrick's Day for you, everyone in Ireland and the Irish folk of the whole world, and actually everybody in the whole world, because this day we're all a bit Irish, aren't we? So I'm smoking my unsmoked Peterson pipe 2018 St. Patrick's Day. It's a beautiful pipe and I've stored it for like 2 or 3 years, and this is the day I smoked this wonderful 9mm. Here's some close shots to look at because the light is fading already here. And in it I have some Peterson Special Reserve 2019. I jarred it up, came in like this tin, and now I'm using in the shed for filters. But jarred nicely over those last 2 years, and it's a lovely aromatic. It's a coffee aromatic, and burley and Virginia and black Cavendish, of course, as a standard base of an aromatic, and smokes very well. It's a perfect moisture level, and it's just a lovely tobacco, it really is. And my lighter today is I got this for a couple of quid in London at a market. This is St. Patrick's Day. Lovely lady with a handful of beer. And it's a Tom. See that? It's a Tom lighter copy of Zippo, but that's why it's so cheap, but actually works very well. And my tamper today is, of course, an Irish Peterson Sherlock Holmes as well. And to celebrate the day, the Quiet Man Irish whiskey, and that Anfia Cuin is the quiet one, and it's a very good whiskey and not expensive as well. 8 years old, but I've had this a couple of years as well. So I thought, to celebrate the day, the Irish ghost stories are among the best in the world, and tell you a little short story about the Banshee and the Leprechaun and Brian. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. It all started when Brian, a young man about 18, and he was out in the fields, and a storm came along and rained, and so he fled and got shelter, and waited, and the storm abated, and the rain stopped, and then the sun came out, and it was a beautiful rainbow. And Brian was smart enough to know, well, if you find the end of the rainbow, there's a pot of gold there as well. So he went searching, and he saw a haystack, and that was where the rainbow ended. Well, he searched and searched, and suddenly his hands found the pot, and he felt to the opening and lots of coins, and he pulled it out, and it was a pot of gold coins. And he laughed and thought, well, now I'm made. But then he heard some crying and sobbing, and suddenly he looked over his shoulder, and there's a little man, only about 3 foot tall, and a huge beard, and all dressed in cream, and he was crying his eyes out, and Brian clutched the pot and said, "I found it, it's mine. Who are you anyway?" And the little man, a leprechaun, said, well, I'm Finn. My name is Finn, and that's my pot. But yes, it's yours. You've found it at the end of the rainbow, and I've lost everything, and I'm worthless now. And he sobbed and sobbed, and Brian was a brave young boy, not frightened of anything, but he had a good heart, and he said, well, if it belonged to you, I'm not a thief, I don't steal things, so I give it back to you. And top of the morning, my dear sir. And Finn grabbed the pot and laughed and smiled and danced with this pot for a long time, and then he set it down and looked at Brian, and he said to Brian, "You are a good man, and you did me this service of giving my life back to me, my pot, and I will repay you in the future at the right time." And Brian stared at him and thought, well, what do you mean? And at that point he was distracted, and the rainbow disappeared. He looked back to the leprechaun Finn, and he disappeared as well. So Brian returned to his home, and some months later a tragedy was happening to his family. His little brother was dying from consumption, and everyone knew he had only hours left, and that night would be a full moon, and everyone was fearing the Banshee, because the Banshee, in one interpretation of folklore, is the angel of death in Ireland, and she visits the family in the night and wails and screams, and everyone is afraid. And by midnight and a full moon, the person who was very ill will die. And that evening everyone was cowering and fearing, because they heard the wailing of the Banshee. The Banshee is also known as the keening woman, because that is what this lament and terrible sound means. And Brian was afraid, but he was very brave, and he said, "No, I will not let this happen." And he went out of the doors and fell to his knees and prayed to the Banshee and said, take me, not my little brother." And the Banshee swirled around him, and suddenly she turned from a very ugly hag to a beautiful young woman, and the sound of her wailing got softer and sweeter, and she said, "Yes, I accept your offer." She rather liked Brian. "You will come to me in the underworld and climb in my chariot, and as soon as the Banshee takes the soul of the person past the face of the full moon, everything is over." And Brian climbed in the chariot, and the chariot rose towards the full moon, and his family looked out of the windows and cried and wept. But at that moment, in the chariot, Brian noticed someone next to him. It was Finn, the leprechaun. And he said, what are you doing here? We are underway to the underworld, so you can't be here. And Finn said, I said and I promised I would help you at the right moment where your need is greatest. And he raised his little hands, and a powerful beam of golden light pushed Brian out of the chariot, and he fell and he fell, and he thought, I will die on the ground. But he didn't, because he fell in the giant haystack on the ground where he met Finn and the pot of gold. Now sometimes you say, well, there's a needle in a haystack, and Brian found the farmer's daughter in the haystack. That's the luck of Irish, you know. And he took her home, and they celebrated, and they were very happy in the family, and his little brother was in perfect health. All was well, and he stepped out to get a fresh air and to pray for the soul of Finn, his friend. And all of a sudden, next to him was Finn the leprechaun, and he laughed, and they both laughed, and he said, how did you escape from the Banshee? That's impossible. And Finn said, well, I owed you a favour in your greatest need at that moment, and also the Banshee owed me a favour as well. And he laughed and laughed, and he said, Brian, you will be a great man for our country, and you will do great things, and you will become a legend in Ireland. And he chuckled and laughed, and in a blink of eye he was gone. And indeed, Brian Boru became a great king of Ireland and did fantastic, legendary things for Ireland. There is even a beautiful music at the end of this video, played by the US Marine Band, called the Brian Boru March. So my friends, on St. Patrick's Day, remember, if you meet a leprechaun be kind to him and be fair to him. And if you meet a Banshee, be brave as well. So I say to you, Kula sov an sláinte